Good morning. This public forum on the proposed change in the authority's preference power rates is being conducted pursuant to a power authority policy adopted by the trustees in 1990. Another forum will be conducted on November 20th, 2025 in Albany at NYPA's office located at 30 South Pearl Street, sixth floor conference room. My name is Felisa Hockeiser, and I'm the authority's Deputy Corporate Secretary. This public forum is not required by law and is being held in addition to the State Administrative Procedure Act, SAPA, process. The SAPA process, which provides for a 60-day public comment period, began on October 8, 2025, and is scheduled to end on December 8, 2025. The purpose of this forum is to offer affected customers and the public an opportunity to present data, views, and positions for the authority's trustees to consider prior to taking final action on the proposed rate change. This forum will not include a question and answer segment, so please use your time to share your thoughts, concerns, and insights. We are here to listen. If you plan to make an oral statement, please provide your name and affiliation to staff on entering. Also, if you have a written statement, you can mail or email it to the corporate secretary. Both oral and written statements will be included in the official record. The record will remain open for additional comments through close of business Monday, December 8th, 2025. Additional comments should be mailed or emailed to the corporate secretary at 123 Main Street, 9B as in boy, White Plains, New York, 10601, or email at secretaries.office@nypa.gov. That's secretaries.office@nypa.gov. At this point, I would like to introduce Scott Tentenman, the authority's Senior Vice President of Finance, who will provide additional details on the proposed rate change.
Thank you, Ms. Hockeiser. And good morning, everybody. My name is Scott Tetman, and I am the Senior Vice President of Finance at the New York Power Authority. I'm here today to present an overview of the modifications being proposed by NYPA to the hydroelectric preference power rates, referred to as the 2026 rate plan. By this rate action, the authority is proposing a 6-year rate plan covering the period April 1st, 2026 through March 31st, 2032. The proposed increase in the preference power rates would be the first rate increase since 2014. The proposed preference power rates, based on a 70% load factor, are $14.57 effective April 1st, 2026, $16.25 effective April 1st, 2027, $17.94 effective April 1st, 2028, $19.63 effective April 1st, 2029, $21.32 effective April 1st, 2030, and $23 even effective April 1st, 2031. The current preference power rate is $12.88 per megawatt hour. Now, even with the proposed rate increase, preference power rates are still expected to remain significantly lower than the projected market rates throughout the rate plan. The public comment period under SAPA and this public forum are intended as opportunities for the public and customer input into the authority's preference power rate making process in accordance with both SAPA and the authority's policies. To that end, the authority staff has been working with the customers and responding to inquiries in a timely and thorough manner. Staff will consider all comments raised during the public comment period, including those made today during this public forum. The staff will present their analysis, findings, and recommendations to the trustees at the conclusion of the public comment period. I will now provide some background on the authority's preference rates, recent history, and the cost components that make up the rates. After that, I will describe in more detail the current rate proposal, including the primary drivers of the rate increase. The authority's preference power rates apply to the customers that purchase hydroelectric preference power supplied from the authority's Niagara and St. Lawrence hydroelectric projects. The major customer groups are the 47 municipal electric systems and 4 rural electric cooperatives located in the state, 3 upstate investor-owned utilities for the benefit of their residential customers, the neighboring state customers, 2 transportation authorities, and the Niagara Project relicensing host communities. As I previously mentioned, NYPA last changed its preference power rates in 2014 based upon the 2011 rate modification plan. The 2011 modification plan phased in preference power rates to the cost-based rate with increases over 4 years. Approved by the NYPA Board of Trustees on November 1st, 2011, the final rate under this plan, made effective May 1st, 2014, was $12.88 per megawatt hour, which is still in effect today. NYPA has been providing preference power to customers at this rate for the past 11.5 years. In December 2024, the authority proposed a rulemaking to increase preference power rates for the first time since 2014. In March 2025, NYPA withdrew the 2024 proposed preference power rulemaking in response to affordability concerns raised by Governor Kathy Hochul and several customer groups. Subsequently, at the request of its customers, NYPA actively re-engaged with its preference power rate customers through their associations or representatives by providing technical analytics, communicating the need for a rate change, and gathering customer feedback and support for the rate change. In September 2025, NYPA proposed the 2026 rate plan. This rate plan reflects lower rates than NYPA had proposed in 2024 and addresses customer feedback expressed during the prior rulemaking process. This rate plan represents less than a 3% annual increase on total bills for end-use customers each year of the 2026 rate plan. Now, the hydro cost of service of the Niagara and St. Lawrence facilities is attached to the September 23rd, 2025 trustee memorandum initiating the SAPA process. NYPA incorporated rate-making methodologies in this hydro cost of service that have been adopted previously with some changes which I will describe. Many of the methodologies stem from the April 2003 final rate action approved by the trustees and agreed to by preference power rate customers who were active parties to the 2003 rate proceeding, continued in NYPA's 2007 preference power rate action, and used again with modifications in the development of the 2011 rate plan. The total hydro project's cost, net of unforced capacity or UCAP and ancillary service revenue credits, are $326 million, $360 million, $359 million, $369 million, $380 million, and $394 million for the 2026 to 2032 calendar years, respectively. The principal cost drivers responsible for the increases are the past and projected capital investments at the facilities. In fact, since the 2011 rate plan and through 2024, NYPA has invested over $1.2 billion in plant and equipment in the hydro projects. NYPA has also initiated its Next Gen Niagara Modernization and Digitization Project, a capital investment program to replace end-of-life assets with new and modern plant and equipment with an expected cost of $1.1 billion over the 2017 through 2039 time period. Additionally, the authority has experienced inflationary pressures on its operating and maintenance expenses, including administrative and general expenses. Now, the Rate Stabilization Reserve, or RSR, is a contractual mechanism NYPA uses to ensure rate stability, and which also provides guidance to us on rate making. The RSR balance is determined on an annual basis and calculates the difference between actual costs and revenues collected through preference power rates. Based on recent RSR calculations, the authority is under recovering its cost under the existing preference power rates. The 2026 rate plan introduces a gradual increase in rates over a 6-year period from April 1st, 2026 through March 31st, 2032. Additionally, the rate plan includes updated cost and revenue projections and a change in methodology that lowers the cost of capital. The 2026 rate plan includes several rate-making methodology changes to develop the preference power rates, demonstrates our commitment to minimize costs, and to provide administrative simplicity and transparency within the cost recovery process. Now, first, to address customer concerns about rising costs, NYPA is proposing to cap and fix the recovery of its operation and general costs. The 2025 through 2031 gross administrative and general, or A&G, expense recovery will be based on 2023 actual expenses, which were $212,665,707, which will then be escalated by 4% annually through 2031 and will not be reconciled to actual A&G expenses in those years. However, allocated A&G will be reconciled through the RSR based on annual updates to the labor ratios. Similarly, the 2025 through 2031 operating and maintenance expenses recovery will be fixed and again not subject to reconciliation. Any direct O&M related to emergent work at the Niagara and St. Lawrence facilities will continue to be subject to reconciliation through the RSR. Further, NYPA staff proposes the following adjustments to the treatment of ancillary services and UCAP credits in the hydro cost of service on a permanent basis. The treatment of ancillary services will now be the same as the treatment of merchant UCAP revenues, wherein ancillary services revenues are credited to the hydro cost of service and reconciled to actuals through the RSR. Now, the UCAP credit for the hydro cost of service will be calculated based on the assumption that all excess UCAP related to the hedged portion, specifically bilateral transactions, will be priced in the cost of service at the monthly average rest of state UCAP auction prices in the wholesale market, using an equally weighted average of the prices in all New York ISO UCAP auction markets. NYPA will continue to hedge its capacity portfolio in its sole discretion based upon internal policies and market conditions, and will make an adjustment to reflect wholesale market pricing for hydro cost of service purposes only. Second is a change to the recovery of capital costs. Prior to the 2026 rate plan, NYPA used a modified trended original cost methodology for assets funded with equity and the original cost methodology for assets funded with debt. These methodologies required NYPA to track all asset vintages. Now, due to a change in the depreciation rate methodology in 2021, which involved a move to group depreciation, NYPA no longer tracks individual assets by vintage in its accounting system. NYPA proposes adopting a more traditional rate-making methodology of rate base times cost of capital for determining its capital recovery. Moving forward, the cost of capital will be defined as NYPA's actual long-term debt rate. Now, NYPA's actual long-term debt rate, currently at 4.4%, represents a lower cost of capital than initially contemplated in the 2024 proposal. This change in capital cost recovery methodology offsets other cost drivers in this rate plan, thus producing a more modest rate impact. Now, next, to reduce volatility in the RSR balance caused by fluctuations in actual energy generated from the plants, and in response to customer feedback, NYPA will be using a 5-year average of actual generation for the cost-based rate calculation, replacing the traditional long-term average generation. Previously described changes, including the crediting of ancillary services and UCAP revenue, and the new capital cost recovery method to the hydro cost of service, will be used in the RSR reconciliations. Lastly, NYPA staff proposes to eliminate normalization of the Recharge New York load, as the program is nearly fully subscribed, and further administrative simplifications of the RSR calculation for ease of understanding. As per the customer request, NYPA further proposes that 50% of each year's increase is to be recovered through the demand rate, and the remaining 50% through the energy rate. The resulting energy rates are as follows: $5.76 per megawatt hour effective April 1st, 2026, $6.61 per megawatt hour effective April 1st, 2027, $7.45 per megawatt hour effective April 1st, 2028, $8.29 per megawatt hour effective April 1st, 2029, $9.14 per megawatt hour, effective April 1st, 2030, and $9.98 per megawatt hour, effective April 1st, 2031. And the resulting demand rates are as follows. $4.50 per kilowatt month, effective April 1st, 2026. $4.93 per kilowatt month, effective April 1st, 2027. $5.36 per kilowatt month, effective April 1st, 2028. $5.79 per kilowatt month, effective April 1st, 2029. $6.22 per kilowatt month, effective April 1st, 2030. And $6.65 per kilowatt month, effective April 1st, 2031. As NYPA's Deputy Corporate Secretary, Ms. Hawkeiser, stated earlier, the authority will also accept written comments on the proposed rates through December 8th, 2025. And I will now turn the forum back over to Ms. Hawkeiser.
Thank you, Mr. Denman. Since I understand that we have at least one speaker, I will now hand the forum over to Alex Cravell, Media Relations Specialist, to call on speakers.
Thank you. Our first speaker is Travis Dubois, or Dubois.
They're Americanized Dubois.
Travis Dubois.
Close to Canada, but here, yeah. For you. Wait. Good morning. My name is Travis Dubois, and I am the superintendent for the Village of Sherburne Electric Department, one of 47 municipalities and 4 rural electric cooperatives in New York State that own and operate their own electric utility. I'm also an executive committee member for NIAP, the New York Association of Public Power, which advocates for public power communities. Sherburne has been purchasing hydropower from NYPA since the completion of the Niagara Power Project in 1961. As a result, Sherburne and other NIAP members provide their customers with over 85% renewable energy. Sherburne and other NIAP members have contracts with NYPA to purchase hydropower at cost-based rates through the year 2040. The savings are passed on to Sherburne's end-use customers. In December of 2024, NYPA presented a rate increase based on unilateral changes in rate design that were not consistent with NYPA's legal commitments to supply power at cost-based rates to preference power customers. In January, I spoke out against NYPA's proposal, along with several of my colleagues and others. NYPA's revised rate modification plan is more affordable and in keeping with NYPA's requirement to provide cost-based rates. Further, NYPA's revised proposal acknowledges the key points of preference power rate making as a guideline for future rate reviews. Sherburne and other NIAP members offer their consent for the current proposal. We at NIAP appreciate our long-standing partnership with NYPA, and we look forward to continuing our relationship in accordance with the Niagara Redevelopment Act. I want to stress that we need to continually focus on supporting and retaining businesses in our communities and in New York. My highest priority as superintendent of our electric utility is to provide reliable service at affordable rates for Sherburne's citizens and businesses. That is also the objective of other members of NIAP. On behalf of NIAP and Sherburne, I thank you for this opportunity to comment on the rate modification plan.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jim Stokes. Jim?
Morning, everyone. My name is Jim Stokes. I'm the Executive Director of the Municipal Electric Utilities Association of New York State. MUA is a nonprofit, unincorporated association of 40 municipal electric utility community members spread throughout upstate New York. I'm appearing today to offer comments relative to the New York Power Authority's proposed increase in rates charged to its preference customers. MUA's members are all preference power customers of NYPA that purchase electricity generated by the Niagara Power Project. That power by law must be delivered at the lowest rates reasonably possible. 1/4 of our member systems are classified by New York State as disadvantaged communities. All of our residents, particularly the low and moderate income residents, as well as businesses in our communities, are struggling economically. And while no one wishes to see rates for any required commodity or utility increase, the MUA believes that the rate plan currently offered by NYPA meets the statutory test, and therefore MUA fully supports the rate plan as presented to the trustees and urges the trustees to adopt that plan without modification. MUA and its members have a decades-long history of working hand in hand with the New York Power Authority. While we appreciate that NYPA has other projects and tasks, MUA views the Niagara Power Project as well as the St. Lawrence FDR Power Project and its transmission assets as NYPA's core mission. Since its inception under Governor Roosevelt, NYPA's very purpose was the development of the hydroelectric resources of the state for the people of the state. MUA fully supports NYPA's planned investment of over $1 billion in NYPA's Next Gen Niagara initiative to preserve and upgrade Niagara's critical infrastructure to preserve this asset for electricity generation for years to come. MUA appreciates the authority's approach to this rate-making proposal. The MUA expressed grave concerns with NYPA's previous proposal, and the authority listened. Through months of engagement, NYPA was able to address our concerns with the previous proposal and moderate the proposed increases significantly. The MUA believes that the rates proposed here meet the statutory requirements and will ensure that NYPA has the necessary resources to invest in the needed capital to improve its hydroelectric project assets, thereby preserving preference power for municipal utilities at the lowest possible rates for years to come. We thank the NYPA team for listening to our concerns and investing the time and effort to address those concerns. The rate plan as revised is all the better for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. As no one else has signed up to speak at the forum, we will recess and reconvene as more speakers arrive. Thank you. We are reconvening as we have a new speaker. Our next speaker is Amber Goodberry.
Hello, my name is Amber Goodberry. I'm here to address the New York Power Authority as an ally of the Tonawanda Seneca Nation, a federally recognized Indigenous nation and part of the Haudenosaunee. As a concerned resident of New York State, I live in Niagara Falls and I also own a business in Lewiston. I wish to reiterate comments that have already been provided to the NYPA by the Tonawanda Seneca Nation, the Council of Chiefs, with respect to allocations of low-cost hydropower sought by tenants at the Western New York Site's Technological Advanced Manufacturing Park. I've also brought the letter printed out. I don't do great with reading statements out loud, but you know.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Would you like it read?
If that's the way things are usually proceeded.
I don't know how
Send it into the record, Scott.
What?
Send the letter into the record.
So we can just accept the letter and put it into the record. Okay.
Is that how it works? Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Since no one else has signed up to speak, we will recess and reconvene again as more speakers arrive. Thank you. We are reconvening for an additional speaker. Our next speaker is Neil Patterson Sr. Neil?
I decided to say a few words. I wasn't planning on saying anything. But as you know, last month, was it?
Yep.
We met over there. And I was with the trustees, not with trustees, but listening to them. And I realized how intertwined the New York Power Authority is with politics in New York State. I mean, they're brother and sister, you might say, or intertwined as tight as you can be. And what I heard was that you guys are leaning towards nuclear power. And being who I am, I can't fathom that in my mind, nuclear power again in New York State. About maybe 40 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, They built a nuclear power station just north of New York City, I understand. Never turned a lick of power because the people in New York City were afraid of it. I'm thinking, what makes us less afraid today of nuclear power? Just because there's less ways to create havoc, less ways to create nuclear waste, doesn't mean we're ready for it. Doesn't mean New York State is ready for it. I worked in construction my whole life. I worked at Somerset. I worked in Ithaca. I worked at the Huntley Station. They're all past now. They were coal-fired plants. They're all gone. But I can't fathom why they shut them down. They didn't have something to replace them. You're replacing them with solar panels and wind power. And I've noticed the past 3 or 4 years that sort of slowed down. Does New York State have extra power to slow these things down? In Ithaca, they had 0 emissions coming out of that smokestack. The only thing that was coming out of there was steam. And of course, they had, would be gypsum, you call it, that cleaned it out. And that's what I did there. I was in charge of all the mechanical there in that building. It's 10 stories high, clean it all. Now, I guess it's obsolete. Before you make clothes that you're wearing, the shoes that you're wearing, obsolete, you should have another set to put on. And I think that's what New York State is a little bit lack on. What's going to replace these things? Nuclear power, in my opinion, is not the next step. Nuclear power is dangerous. We all know this from the past. When I was working on a Somerset, the guys that were working there, the engineer, I worked closely with the engineers down there. They were making, was that one in Pennsylvania that went goofy?
3 Mile Island.
3 Mile Island. They were already setting up to fix that. They had a mock-up of the top of that nuclear thing that would be actually fixed, but a month too late. And now 3 Mile Island, not so good. So before New York State goes along with nuclear power, and by the way, I understand it takes approximately 10 years from the time you decide to do it, by the time it actually gets done. If you're going to do it, what's wrong with the one in New York City? Make that work. Put it in Washington, D.C. Put it where all lawmakers are. If it's that safe, don't put it in some swamp. Don't put it next to Great Lakes. Put it somewhere where it can be controlled by human beings. I hear a lot about AI lately. And we know that's a threat. Everybody can understand that it's a threat. So please think about these things. And you're close to political power as I can get right now. So maybe you ought to tell them about it. What are we going to do if they didn't have an answer for 3 Mile Island, didn't have an answer for Chernobyl? These are things that are on everybody's mind. The average person. I know maybe you see a deficit in the power coming up. We don't know what the deficit will be in 5 years. You guys should be already there. Deficit of power, if there is one, or a glut of power. You guys should know this. But the average person on the street doesn't. Please think about these things. Ona?
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Neil. No one else has signed up to speak currently, so we will recess and reconvene as more speakers arrive. Thank you.
It is now 3 p.m. As previously stated, the record of this forum will remain open for additional comments through close of business December 8th, 2025. The November 18th, 2025 public forum on the proposed increase in rates for authorities' preference power is now officially closed. Thank you and good day.